Rape happens every 2 hours in Pakistan, and only 4% of those convicted rapists end up in jail. I was sitting with a lawyer today and I confirmed some of this information that I found online, and I was doing a research on it because when I did actually come across it, it kind of shook my core, because this is a topic that not a lot of people want to discuss, and it is because of this reason little girls like Zainab end up in dumpsters and in the trash. So I wanted to talk about the legal system in Pakistan and how they actually figure out if this was an actual non-consensual rape, or they figure out how it happened, and they base it on 3 things. So the first thing they base it on is the character of the girl. The second thing they base it on is the chemical lab tests that come back, which is pretty standard. Everybody would understand, like a DNA test and all that kind of stuff. And then the third thing that they base it on is a physical examination, which happens within the 72 hours of the rape. The decision if this rape happened or if this rapist should be convicted is based on these 3 things. 50% of the decision is based on the character of the woman in Pakistan. 30% is based on the physical examination, which I will explain how it's happened. And 20% is based on the lab tests. So when we come to 50% of the character part of the legal system or requirement or whatever to guarantee that this was definitely a rape or it wasn't, to convict the rapist, the way they do it is they first go and check how this woman was related to this rapist, or how did she know him, or anything like that. Then they check if this woman has a character to be out of the house. Is she liberal? Is she always out? Is she never home? They ask questions like if this girl was a virgin or not, things like that. So 50% of the decision in the courts are made based on the character of the girl. 20% again, lab tests, pretty straightforward. 30% is based on a physical exam. This physical exam is what really shook me to my core. It's called, in the legal system, it's called a 2-finger test. Okay? A 2-finger test is basically when a doctor would insert 2 fingers into the vagina of a woman to see the elasticity of it. Okay? If it's loose, that means that this woman is exposed to sex. If it is not loose, then they can say, okay, maybe, yeah, it was rape. But it is never 100%. Okay? In Pakistan, if we pick up a city, say for example Karachi, these are the facts that I found online. In Karachi, there are 9 hospitals that have the resources to do these kind of tests. And only 3 of the hospitals have the 3 female doctors who can do these tests. So these 3 women are basically known as medical legal officers who have absolutely 0 legal training, according to one of them in an interview that she did. Also, they are not protected, these 3 doctors. So they have like a lineup of 50 to 100 women outside, and they have a really filthy clinic. They do this test on a sofa, like a broken down sofa, unpainted room, no security at all, right? Nobody in Pakistan, especially doctors, they don't want to get into this field. They don't want to be a medical legal officer. So technically, for all of Karachi, there's only 3 of them. And given the fact that I've given before, that a rape in Pakistan happens every 2 hours. So to have 3 doctors is mind-boggling, right? These are registered 3 legal officers, right? Now, these women are threatened for their own jobs, their own lives, because they are going through physical abuse by people who are coming up to them and saying, you better make sure that the test comes out negative for the rape, because they may have connections with the mafia or whatever you want to call it, right? They also are scared for themselves, their families. They also do a very quick test because there's like 50 other people waiting. So this is one part of Pakistan that needs a lot of work as far as the medical system is concerned. And because it's like such a big deal not to talk about this, it's very hard to to even wrap your head around how they do this medical test, right? And 30% of that result is what decides if that rapist will end up in jail or not. There's also many different, women who have opened up and said that they want justice, right? And one of the very popular names that comes to mind is Mukhtar Mai, right? In 2002, she was raped and paraded naked in her village by the local council, who had basically said that because her brother had raped a 16-year-old boy, had raped a 13-year-old girl, his older sister, who was Mukhtar Mai, was supposed to be gang raped. And that is what the local council had said. So this woman had gone through gang rape, paraded naked in the village, stood up, became a voice for women in Pakistan, and went out and opened an organization, and she's now a well-known woman. But even our former president had hushed her, and he himself admits to this, that he has hushed her to protect the image of Pakistan. What comes to my mind with all of this is that it is very, very disturbing. It is very disturbing to the point where, if you think about how much the women in Pakistan, and I'm also kind of confused, because I'm thinking, like, what about, you're sitting there and talking about the 2-finger test. What about a wife who's been raped by her husband, or a child who's 5 years old and she gets raped by her father, like every other night? You're gonna sit there and tell me that you're gonna do a 2-finger test on this child? There are stories, and I will talk about child abuse in Pakistan, or even just child abuse generally, not just in Pakistan. I'm not trying to target Pakistan here, but just to talk about the problems that we have and how we should, come out and talk about this stuff. Rape is something that needs to be spoken about. In India, there was a girl who was on a bus, and she was gang raped because she was wearing a short skirt. So eve teasing. These are big issues. These are issues that need to be spoken about. And the people who need to be educated on this, or people who, especially the men, are the ones who need to be educated on this. And people need to come out and talk about this to their husbands, their sons, their fathers, things like that. I believe that every woman who has gone through something like this in their life should have a voice. So say it. Let it out. But I just can't wrap my head around the fact that a rape in Pakistan and India is based on a very non-scientific, illogical, a very discriminatory, derogatory, inhumane way. It's just not handled legally. Legally, it's not handled correctly. And someone needs to do something about it. So that's one thing that I think that everyone should get out and talk about. So rape. Talk about it.